we'll read this story, we'll get through these first few chapters of Genesis, and somehow I'm thinking that the agony and the effort and the struggle that we have on this life is a result of the fall of man. And the reason that I'm working so much is because we have fallen out of grace from God and we're no longer in this perfect garden. Not at all. Long before this fall, mankind was here to work. That's a side point. He's there to work the garden and take care of it. And the Lord commanded the man, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will certainly die." I don't know who's read ahead, but they ate of this tree. And the question that I've always posed with is, okay, they ate, but did they die? And I've heard a lot of explanations for this. It's like, okay, maybe they didn't die right away, but then they suddenly had the capacity to die because they're no longer in the garden. They no longer have access to this tree of life. And yes, that is kind of true. But what also happens immediately is they are exiled from the garden. And so everything that gave them direct, continual presence with God and access to that life 2.0 was immediately taken away. And they experienced death. Not physical, I can't breathe, I'm not a living being, but their access to the more life was gone. So it's almost as though this tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it might as well have just been called the tree of death, honestly. So that's what it gave them. So, but we see this pattern here in Genesis where this man is living. He's been breathed. He's a living being. He's a real earthling. And he's given access to the presence of God and the tree of life, and he gets life 2.0. And then as soon as he is removed from that, he experiences death 1.0 by not being in the presence of God. All right, we needed that detour, I promise. All right, let's keep moving on. We're going to go to Ezekiel 37. So I told you all that so that we could look at this. So Ezekiel is kind of a wild book if you've never read it. So for context here, so Ezekiel is a prophet. He is living in Babylon, which is the nation that overtook Israel and took them captive and hauled them off to their country and, made them slaves. And it was a really bad time. So exile was not great for Israel. And this is the period that Ezekiel is living in. And so Ezekiel is of the tribe of Levi. He would have the role of a priest. And the very first statement in this book is, it says that he is 30 years old, which to me at this point sounds like a spring chicken, but more importantly, this is the time in his life where he would have been starting his role in the temple and working as a priest. And so he's kind of got this attitude about him of like a grief, almost a loss of, he wanted and desired to be that priest who works in the temple And he's like in a lament that that was taken away from him. And so a lot of this book is written with this kind of persona of a, like, Israel, you know what you did. Like, you know why. You know, it's a real heavy accusation against Israel in the actions that they did that brought them to the place they are. But as we've moved through this book and we've moved through these prophecies, we kind of get to a point where he's delivering some messages of hope. And that's really where this valley comes in. So we're in Ezekiel chapter 37. And let's just get into these wild visions. So Ezekiel is full of them. This one is fun. It says, "The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley. The bones were very dry. He asked me, 'Son of man, can these bones live?' I said, 'Sovereign Lord, you alone know.'" This would have been real uncomfortable for Ezekiel. I mean, like, not that anybody wants to just roam around in a valley full of bones. I get it. I'm not, like, real intrigued in doing that either. But more so because of his role as what would have been a priest, his identifying as that role of a priest. Priests, if you recall, are not allowed at all to touch anything associated with death. And so this isn't just, a soldier roaming around who's used to death all about him. This is someone who is making a commitment to say, I'm going to stay away from anything that resembles or is associated with death. And God, through the Spirit, takes him, puts him in a valley full of death, and says, how about you roam around a little bit? I mean, I don't know how you do this kind of a thing, but he had to be uncomfortable to be here. And in this crazy, uncomfortable moment of being surrounded by death, he says, can these bones live? And Ezekiel, very, very confident in God's ability, says, Lord, only you know, which is fair. Let's see what he does to it. He says, then he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you. I will make you come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath into you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I was commanded. And as I was prophesying, there was a noise, a rattling sound. I've never rattled bones, but like in my head, I'm hearing antlers. I mean, that's my association. So, okay. A rattling sound. And the bones came together, bone to bone. And I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared, and skin covered them. But there was no breath in them. I find this so curious. I mean, outside of the crazy, uncomfortable part that Ezekiel is experiencing right here, he sees these bones come together. He sees flesh build on them. He sees skin covering them. What he sees is a group of things that used to be people looking kind of like people again. But they're not alive. They look like humans. They resemble earthlings. But these people aren't alive yet. Even through the power of God, you can look alive, but not be alive. So there's an extra layer. We'll keep moving. Then he said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, son of man, say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, breath, from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded, and breath entered them, and they came to life and stood up on their feet, a vast army. It was in this vision only when the breath entered them. And now, breath here, you probably picked up on it. So, breath and wind and spirit in Hebrew, we're talking about the same word here. So this is the ruach. The spirit entered them, and that is what made them alive. There was a layer of this where they looked like people, but they were not. But at the presence of God's Spirit in them, now you look alive. I want to finish reading this last little section. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say, our bones are dried up, our hope is gone, we are cut off. Therefore, prophesy to them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I am going to open your graves and bring you out of them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you will be my people. You will know that I am the Lord. When I open the graves and bring them out of them, I will put my spirit in you, and you will live. And I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord. What a wild vision. But did you see the pattern? In Genesis, when we're looking at Adam, he has life, and he has the presence of God, and it's all available to him, and he leaves and he dies. But here, they are dead. And when they are filled with the Spirit is when they actually live. Ezekiel is laying out an awesome pattern where he says, I'm taking what happened with Adam and how people are meant to work and live and be with the Spirit, and giving you an Uno reverse and showing you what that reverse pattern actually looks like. Because you can look alive. Just like Adam doesn't die right away. But when you are disconnected from the presence and the Spirit of God, you're still dead. And just because it can get taken away, like it did with Adam, it can also be given back through the Spirit. Last little bit here. We're going to go down to Ephesians chapter 2. And now, I love that Ezekiel took the time to write down that undoubtedly uncomfortable vision that he had. Because truthfully, what this does is it lays a pattern for the reality that we are currently living in. So Ephesians chapter 2, I'm going to start reading at verse 1. It says, As for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of the world, and the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. But because of his great love for us. God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ. Even when we were dead in transgressions, it is by grace that you have been saved. Just like those bones. On a spiritual level, we are experiencing the exact same thing. When you are outside of the presence of God, and in this case, an indwelling presence of God, you are actively in a state of death. You might not be physically dead, but you're definitely not alive. And that's what's being promised here. It's a neat pattern that goes kind of through this. In the presence of God is the only place where we find what ultimately becomes true life. And this wasn't lost on anybody, so we will read them. So, oh good, I wrote them on here. So John 3:6, he's having this awesome conversation. Jesus is talking with Nicodemus, and he says, flesh gives birth to flesh. You can become a living being through this. But spirit gives birth to spirit. In John 10:10, he says, the thief comes to steal and to kill and to destroy. But I come that you can have life, but life to the full. And in 1 Corinthians 6:19, it says, your body is a temple, and in it dwells the Holy Spirit. He's in you. This isn't, you're not your own person anymore. You were bought at a price. True life only comes from your presence with God and his Spirit. That is such a hard and humbling. I'm trying to think of the nice way to say this. It's a difficult reality in the world that we live in, because there is a very unfortunate number of people who are walking around with life 1.0. But they might not know what life 2.0 feels like. I remember a conversation we were having, gosh, it was a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about the people who don't know God, who don't understand his Spirit and his presence. And I had this moment where I was trying to imagine, as I was writing the notes and studying for this sermon, as I'm sitting around panicked about how I'm going to come up here and speak to you guys every other week, I get to stop and I get to just talk to God. And I get to pour my heart out to him. And I get to lay on him my burdens and my joy, my victories and my challenges, and he's there to listen to me. And I know that he does, because we are all known by God. And that's the reality of the Spirit in you. I have so much pity for anyone in the world who doesn't know what that's like. Life 2.0, guys, is such a beautiful gift. And I hope that you understand and embrace and just hang on tight, because can you fathom what it's like to sit in the quiet and the dark and just not have God there for you? But so much of our world does. Real life comes through the Spirit. And man, what a blessing. And if you want to challenge yourself mentally, ask yourself what it would be like to not think God was there for you. And now think of a whole world out there that's living that way. The Spirit is big, but it's also the source of not just being alive, but truly living. And so, with this today, if you need that help, if you need that direction, if you just need that encouragement of how to reach out, not to me, guys, I will let you down. But that's where God steps in. And that's where his presence lives, and that's where his Spirit dwells in you, because he is always right there. And so don't leave today, don't miss an opportunity to reach out to this community, to understand what it means to be truly filled with his Spirit.